Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of the GC Informer, Gamecast's very own news program. I'm your host for today, Mark, also known as Koistorch. A new trailer has been released for Spider-Man's next DLC pack, Turf Wars, launching later this month. The DLC pack will continue the City That Never Sleeps narrative, which included the Heist DLC last month, and will include 3 more DLC suits, including one of my absolute favourites, the Iron Spider. This chapter focuses on Hammerhead as he makes his mark on the city after the events of the main game. And if you haven't played it already, Spider-Man PS4 is just a fantastic game. Everything about it just works. Next up, Dragon Ball Heroes World Mission has been raided in Australia, continuing the semi-regular tradition of accidentally revealing localizations before any official announcements. I reported on this a few weeks ago and said how it would be cool to localize the game in English, as Dragon Ball Heroes as a franchise is getting more recognition thanks to games like Xenoverse and the Heroes anime. The game is fairly simplistic, but it has a ton of what-if scenarios and characters spanning all of Dragon Ball and beyond. On Switch it's simple enough just to import the game and try to play in Japanese, but the possibility of a localization is great news. But don't expect a dub, as the majority of the characters present in the game wouldn't have English voices. It would be a huge undertaking to voice them all, so I wouldn't get my hopes up in that department. The game won't release in Japan till next year, so hopefully we'll get an announcement on localization somewhere near its release, kind of like Dragon Ball Fusions on the 3DS. More news out of Square Enix this week, as Luminous Productions seems to be working on a new AAA title for the PS5. This comes courtesy of a LinkedIn profile that lists an unnamed title for the PS5. We already know that Luminous Productions have spent a lot of money since their establishment, and they've just recently suffered a rather large shake-up with Hajime Tabata leaving the studio. It'll be interesting to see what they're working on, but chances are we won't see or hear anything major for at least another year. Either that or the PS5 is closer than we think and Sony are ready to announce something in the next 12 months. For more speculation and discussion on the topic, don't forget to check out our latest episode of Pocket Edition, where we discuss the future for Microsoft and Sony. Earlier this year, Sony filed a patent for a viewable window for VR designed for those outside the game to look in. The patent has now been made public and it looks interesting. Basically, your smart device would act like a window into the environment when you point it towards the player. This allows a third party to move around and view VR environments without actually playing the game, allowing them to be part of the experience and see things even the player may not see. It's an interesting concept that would work well for streaming and recording, as first person can be a bit jarring or awkward at times for observers. It could open the way for a lot of new team-based games as well, sort of like Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes. I doubt we'll see it fully come to fruition until late in the PS4's lifespan, as it seems like a very experimental concept, but at least it gives an idea that Sony are thinking of something new, as well as continuing support for previous hardware. And lastly today, Niantic are at it again with a proper announcement and reveal trailer for their upcoming Harry Potter phone game. They've already caught lightning in a bottle once before with Pokemon Go, which exploded at launch, then fizzled shortly after, but has since gained a steady following thanks to improved features and new content. Harry Potter is an even more universal franchise, as it extends beyond the realm of games and anime. We could have a small Potter army running around pretty soon, as well as some impromptu cosplays. Not much is known about the game beyond it being pushed back to next year, and that it will deliver a similar experience to Pokemon Go. It could be interesting seeing players gather new spells through exploration of a virtual Hogwarts or Muggle world, and I'd assume they'd have some form of PvP involving golden snitches or spell battles. Whatever it is, I'm sure it'll print money for the devs and will take over society for a month or so at launch, much like Pokemon Go did. Harry Potter Wizards Unite will release sometime in 2019 for Android and iOS devices. For the second week in a row, news has broken while I was already editing a video. Sony have announced that they will not have an E3 showing next year, meaning no conference and no booth. Sony have said they will look for other avenues to connect with fans and deliver news, meaning they might be going down either the Blizzard route and having their own convention, which they could probably pull off, but it'd just be like a separate E3 conference, or doing what Nintendo does and having online directs, which are a great way to deliver new content announcements at different times of the year. It's an odd move for the company and leaves next year's E3 with Microsoft having its usual presence, plus Nintendo doing their regular booths and separate directs. The debate of who won E3 out of the big three will become a matter of perspective, as each one's presence will be completely different to one another. But back on topic, it sounds like Sony want to distance themselves from the expo, possibly to carve out a new identity for themselves. But if it blows up in their face, I'm sure they can always go back to the planned conferences and booths. And that's all the time we have for today. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and please let us know what you thought of today's topics in the comments below. Until next time, bye!